Hi, I'm Lucy Molyneux, and this is my Civil War Destinations project. Fort Sumter National Historical Park, South Carolina. The Fort Sumter Park is a national park where the Civil War started in 1861. Fort Sumter was the only Union fort in South Carolina, and the Confederates wanted to take it over. Fort Sumter was getting reinforced, and the South found it as a good time to go and have the Union call for surrender. They refused. At 4:30 a.m., explosions and guns were going off for almost 36 hours. Then the fort started to burn. Then they surrendered to the Confederacy. That's when the war began. Antietam National Battlefield, Sharpsburg, Maryland. The Antietam National Battlefield is located where the single most bloodiest day in the Civil War was. The battle took place in 1862 and it only lasted 12 hours. More than 3,600 people died that day. The Union claimed their victory, and on September 22nd, Lincoln created the Emancipation Proclamation, which freed the slaves in the South. The Gettysburg National Military Park Museum, Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. The Gettysburg National Park is where the Battle of Gettysburg took place in 1863. After the Battle of Chancellorsville, Robert E. Lee and his Confederate Army started their walk up to Gettysburg to seize the place. On July 2nd, the Confederacy called in reinforcements, yet the Union holds their ground in good defense. And on the 3rd, the Confederate General Robert E. Lee became arrogant and charged the pickets' charge. Yet the Union overcame and won the victory. Vicksburg National Military Park, Vicksburg, Mississippi. The Vicksburg Military Park is where the Battle of Vicksburg took place. There were two theaters, the Western and the Eastern. The Battle of Vicksburg was the battle that ended the Civil War in the Western Theater. The battle went on for 47 days. The Union kept trying to get their way into Vicksburg, but they kept running into other battles. But they finally found their way in. The only way for the Union to win the Battle of Vicksburg is to run a siege. A siege is a military operation which cuts off supplies that the enemy needs. That was a crucial play which helped the Union win the battle. The surrender of General Pemberton. Shiloh National Military Park, Tennessee. The Shiloh National Military Park is where the Battle of Shiloh happened. The Battle of Shiloh took place in Corinth on April 6, 1862. The Union took a ferry down to the Tennessee River to Corinth. Corinth is a jackpot for supplies because it had an important railroad going through it. The Union's strategy was to take it over. The Confederates tried to counterattack to stop the Union. When the battle started, it happened to be next to a church, which meant place of peace, Shiloh. On April 6, every afternoon, most of the Union fell back, but a few groups were left behind. The Confederates surrounded them, which the soldiers called the Hornet's Nest. The South sent a letter to Richmond declaring victory, but Grant had his counterattack and won the Battle of Shiloh. The African American Civil War Museum, Washington, D.C. The African American Civil War Museum in Washington, D.C. is a museum about African Americans in the Civil War. In the beginning of the war, African Americans were in slavery. On January 1st, 1863, Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation. Not all the slaves are free. The African Americans chose to fight in the war on the Union side. With their help, the Union won and became the United States of America. Again. Lincoln Home, Illinois. Abraham Lincoln was America's 16th president. In 1858, he ran an election for senator of Illinois. He was running against Stephen Douglas. Lincoln lost, but Lincoln and Douglas would meet again in the presidential election. At the end of that election, shocker, Lincoln won. Also, in their past, they were both dating Mary Todd. Mary picked Lincoln over Douglas, so that was a fun pass for Douglas. Lincoln was assassinated by John Wilkes Booth, and he was buried in Springfield, Illinois. Harpers Ferry National Historical Park, West Virginia. Harpers Ferry National Historical Park is where the Harpers Raid took place. John Brown, a famous abolitionist, was greatly against slavery. John and a few other men, some of which were sons, raided Harper's Ferry to stop slavery, but they had failed to do so. In that battle, about 16 men had died. Some of them were John's men. The rest of John Brown's men, including John himself, were sentenced to jail. John Brown was to be hung on December 2nd, 1859. John Brown did not live to the day that slavery was finished. Appomattox Courthouse, National Historical Park, Virginia. The Appomattox Courthouse National Historical Park is where General Lee surrendered to General Grant. After 3 to 4 years of fighting, General Lee decides to surrender. Did you know that there were still wars going on even after the surrender of General Robert E. Lee? Also, the war was based on how slavery was going to turn out, but slavery ended during the war. When General Grant won, he sent the Confederates home with food and the officers with their guns. However, the other soldiers' guns were taken from them. The men that owned horses got to take them home with them. Now we are the United States of America. Manassas National Battlefield Park, Virginia. The Manassas National Battlefield Park is where the first Battle of the Bull Run took place. People back then thought that it was smart to have a picnic when the Battle of the Bull Run happened. So when the first shots fired and got close to the people, they finally realized that it was a bad idea. But in the end, the Confederates won the first battle. All we know is that the Union won the entire thing, so yeah.